She's getting so big.
There you go. You're live, Hale.
Awesome. So, hi everyone. We are here for another amazing Pink Table Talk. I'm here with my amazing co-host and an amazing guest today. I'm Haley Brown Buxton Punch from Touch the Black Breast Cancer Alliance. And I will now let everyone introduce themselves.
Do you want me
Dr.
to go?
Candace.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Candace Thompson. I'm a breast surgeon in the Bay Area at Stanford Healthcare and co-host of Pink Table Talk, and really excited for today's guest. Do you want to introduce yourself, Wendy?
Sure. Hi, I'm Wendy Sturgar, and I'm the founder of several businesses that focus on women's health. Good Clean Love is a product line that many people know, including many doctors, because two out of five of our customers comes to us from a doctor. We deliver 3 million samples nationwide, so that people can really start to treat their vaginal microbiome the way they should. And we started a biotech business called Vaginal Biome Science, where we're doing a national study trying to understand the disconnect between diagnosis or actually misdiagnosis and women's vaginal microbiome health. So we're collecting samples at the time of diagnosis, and we should have a database that teaches us a lot about what the microbiome is actually telling us at that moment of diagnosis. And we just launched actually a business I've been working on for 5 years called Good Clean Clinical Care, which is a business that helps women with their medical needs with compounded medicines that are also miraculously made in a base that supports the vaginal microbiome. So we're coming at it from every angle we can to support women's vaginal microbiome health because it is so critical, not only to the recurrent and chronic infections that so many women suffer with, but even things like preterm labor and, all kinds of bad birth outcomes, and especially, what happens to women's vaginal health after they're being treated for cancer, and that those conditions can go on and on for years. So we're really trying to just be that voice that medicine we hope will follow us and pick up on, because honestly, the number one reason that women leave cancer treatment is because of how badly their vaginas hurt. So I could tell you a lot of stories about all that, but I'm super excited to be here with you today.
No, I'm so excited to learn more. And so basically, this is now me being very candid, as I generally am. Um, when I met you and when came across your work and we got connected and all the things at first call, I was actually going through that exact moment where I had BV of some sort, that was going on, and
Mm.
then had taken some antibiotic for it,
Metronidazole,
right?
yeah.
And
Mhm.
then that caused a yeast infection. And I was just
Mhm.
in that rabbit hole
Cycle.
of all the
Mhm.
things. And so like when I met you, I was like, I don't know you that well, so I haven't told you all the details, but like I was literally experiencing exactly what we're talking about. So immediately I went and bought the product. Oh, can you hear her?
Yeah.
Can you hear her?
No,
No.
she's good.
Okay,
Don't worry
good. These
about her.
headphones, amazing. Go
Yeah.
Apple. Um, no, but no, so it was just so timely for me that
Yeah.
that happened because I was
Yeah.
literally going through that entire back and forth just then. And I was like, so I immediately bought the products. I've been using them since.
Yeah.
So far we're doing good. I'm loving, all the things. But yeah, so basically, I want to hear about your products, what they do for survivors, because I know that that's so
Uh,
amazing. But also, like Pink Table Talk is about being young and figuring out your body, and so I'm excited to also talk about just a little bit about what these products do for just the average person as well. So tell us everything.
and Dr. Candace, stop me or ask whatever you want. I'm not a doctor. I'm married to a doctor. So what I know about that is that he didn't get any education, and this was many years ago, right, around women's health or vaginal health, right? And still, not infrequently, people don't, I mean, there was a company in France that was looking at building another test, bioMérieux, for vaginal microbiome health. And they literally talked to like half a dozen experts in the US who told them, why would you do that? There's nothing it doesn't make any difference. There's nothing we would do differently. And that's like how doctors currently are trained to think about the vaginal microbiome, that it's just this thing that's outside of control. I think microbiome health in general, because when I say vaginal microbiome, really, I'm talking about your entire microbiome, because you can't divorce what's happening in your vaginal microbiome from your gut microbiome. Everyone's heard of that, right? I mean, it's only taken 25 years. And now many doctors, when they give antibiotics, will say, oh, you should take a probiotic with that antibiotic, you know? So there's a consciousness that we want healthy bacteria living in us, but we don't realize that what's happening in our gut is happening in our mouth. In fact, it starts in our mouth frequently. So if you have a ton of decay in your mouth, that is directly associated with research to both mental illness and diabetes, right? Like, so the amount of decay that Americans walk around with, really does affect downstream what's happening. And, if your gut is totally dysbiotic and you're constantly not feeling well, like stomach wise, then you probably also are more prone to a lot of immune dysfunction, right? Like you tend to get more colds, more sore throats. And if you get like a case of COVID, it's likely worse if you're not processing well in your gut. Well, that's all true about the vaginal microbiome too, right? If you're in a constant state of dysbiosis, then you'll then you'll also have other factors coming up. And that's why women who never really feel well vaginally, which is to say, how would they know that? That maybe they have vaginal odor all the time that they feel ashamed of or embarrassed about. That's the key thing that I hear about a lot, right? Is vaginal odor. Vaginal odor is not a quality that somebody has. That's a reflection of somebody not having the right bacteria balance there, right? Like you get an odor when you have bad bacteria. That's true about your body too, right? Like odor is about bacteria and how it plays in any area of your body. So odor is the thing that women will most frequently feel bad about or talk about, but they might also have strange discharges, any number of colors, gray or white, and because so many conditions look like so many other conditions, and because we don't really collect very much data in most instances with women, I mean, women's health of all the specialties, not surprisingly, with how little research we do, even in office, we don't do the research we frequently need to do to know, is this kind of bacteria? We always assume it's these, BV bacterias, but frequently, very frequently, we see strep or enterococcus or other bacteria that is known to live in the gut that's actually migrating down to the vagina. I mean, Dr. Thompson, I'm sure you've kind of seen that yourself. And you have to be really creative to find out. You basically are sending vaginal swabs and saying it's a gut swab in order to get the information, because most medical testing is not designed to do that kind of big testing, that broad testing that we need to do to really know what's happening in a vaginal microbiome. So that's why we developed this test on our platform. That's like, it's not a whole genome sequencing test. That's what a lot of other companies do. But doctors really, by and large, don't read whole genome sequencing. So it's a qPCR panel with 55 targets, but it includes those bacteria like the strep and the enterococcus and the other ones that are harder to detect because we don't generally test for those in vaginal swabs. and as well as a range of yeast and healthy bacteria, right? Because some women also have an overgrowth of healthy bacteria, and that's frequently goes missed too, or misdiagnosed. So anyway, that's the science behind what we do, and
Can I
we
interject a little bit first, Wendy, before we
please,
keep
please,
going? Sorry.
yeah,
You have a wealth of information for our viewers, and I just want to sort of lay the groundwork for them a little bit so that they can understand, just break some things down just a little bit. Um,
sure.
First of all, I'm not an OBGYN, also not trained in that area. I'm trained in surgery. I did surgery training. So I don't claim to be an expert in this either. But as far as like the microbiome goes, so this is a very fancy word that we use to describe what the normal bacteria should be or what the bacteria environment is in certain areas. So when we say the gut microbiome, we're talking about the whole like gastrointestinal tract, or when we say the vaginal microbiome, that's obviously in the vagina. And as Wendy was saying, there can be dysbiosis, which means that there is an overgrowth of the bad bacteria. So there's normal bacteria, and then there's bad bacteria that we don't want to grow too much because that can cause infections. In the case of BV, like Haley was mentioning, BV is bacterial vaginosis, which is pretty common. And there are like multiple papers written and debates about how to treat BV and if it should be routinely treated because it is pretty common, commonly seen, and treating it can cause things like yeast infections and things like that. But some
And it felt
signs
like
for
a little, it felt embarrassing to a degree to like have
it's
this,
very
right? It was like,
normal. It's very normal. If there's like it's like sort of like it's just having an overgrowth of the bad bacteria, which can happen very easily. It's not necessarily due to something that's sexually transmitted or anything like that. It's a normal thing that can happen. A lot of times the body will deal with it. Sometimes it can be recurrent and really difficult to deal with. My sister is actually an OBGYN, so I've like asked her questions about these things sometimes because some of my patients will ask me. But anyway, so for bacterial vaginosis, there can be other things that can be helpful. So I think other than treating with antibiotics. But some of the symptoms are things like a fishy smell or like grayish vaginal discharge. Sometimes if there's pain after sex or pain when you have your period after sex, those can be some of the signs of having bacterial vaginosis. But in general, having a healthy vaginal flora can be helpful. And also sort of to shift gears over to like the cancer side, a lot of the patients that we treat with the anti-estrogen medications will have vaginal dryness as a side effect, and frequently want to have an alternative option other than something with estrogen, because a lot of times there's like estrogen creams that you can use to help with vaginal dryness. So I think Good Clean Love is a really good alternative to that.
Well, so yeah, and I think I'm really glad that you pivoted there, because we are really talking to an audience of young women who are dealing with cancer and cancer diagnosis and cancer treatment at increasingly younger ages, right? So,
Mhm.
and I can talk a little bit more science about that, but essentially what's happening when you go through that and you take these aromatase inhibitors, these medicines to prevent estrogen from living in your system, it's not like menopause at all, like the way that I experienced menopause gradually over time, which isn't to say that menopause is not also jarring in and of itself. For many women, it's very jarring. But a chemical menopause, a chemically induced menopause, it's literally black and white, right? It's an on-off switch. And so the symptoms can be much more extreme because they're so abrupt, right? And so and for many women, they're asked to stay on those medicines for up to 5 years. which is such a long time when you're young. And, we could have a chat about estrogen. I'm sure Candace knows it even more than I do about it, but I've been studying this for a long time. Estrogen is the hormone that does so much for us, but in terms of our vaginal health, it produces glycogen, which creates this virtuous circle where you keep having good, healthy bacteria live there. I do want to make one caveat here, which is something that we know is true and we don't know why it's true, which is that Black women have uh, are much more prone to having a different type of lactobacilli, which is called lactobacilli iners or inners, depending on who you're talking to. And basically, and this is true across the world, it's not just true in America. Again, we don't know how this evolved this way, but obviously there's a reason it did, but it doesn't produce D-lactate, as which is really important. And that's why a lactobacilli like Crispatus or Jenseni, these are the ones that have sort of the golden halo around them because they produce both L and D. And for reasons, again, that we don't fully understand, Black women frequently do not have that D isomer that's being produced by their body. And so that's one of the reasons that Haley responded so well to our products, because if there's any magic secret, what we do is we put a lactic acid in there that has both D and L. And so it compensates for when women don't have that. It's not only women of color, and I don't even just mean Black women, Mexican women, Italian women, Hispanic women, many other women of many other backgrounds don't have this Crispatus Jenseni mix, which is associated with the optimal vaginal health. Now, again, we do so little research on women's health. We spend so little money over so many millions of years that, like most of the things I say, I can't tell you why it's true. We only know that statistically with data that this is what we see. And so it's even more true in women's cancers, right? Like Ricky, your mom, was talking to me about, the kinds of cancers that Black women are faced with that in many ways are unique to them, right? Like the medical institution doesn't even really know how to treat these cancers frequently. That's happening to a dear friend of mine right now, so anyway, all of that to say that in cancer treatment, which is, I think, one of the most amazing and admirable and applaud-worthy things that you've done with your organization, Haley, is creating access for women of color to be included in research, right? So that we can finally know things about what's happening. And
That's pretty amazing. I applaud you all for focusing on that specific strain of lactobacillus. What made you like if you go on like
So
Good Clean Love's
it's
website?
not just women of color. I also don't have that strain, those good strains, right? So when you take out anything about background, we know that a third of women, and we don't know why it's true, and these are called community states, right? So a woman in community state one, just no matter what she does, she gets her period, she has sex, she's wearing wet bathing suits, she's going to continuously come back to healthy lactobacilli. And so I mean, I'm jealous of her, right? And then community state two is this group of women that's constantly trying to get back to good, right? But the truth is, the more we use antibiotics, the less that our body will produce that healthy lactobacilli.
Right.
And then in community state three, those women never have the right bacteria. Maybe this is because when they go through their birth canal, their mother doesn't also have it, right? Like that's one of the theories. But, and we know that babies who are born C-section tend to have more sort of kind of immune issues because they didn't go through the birth canal.
Right.
Again, I'm not saying anything definitive. We're just speculating about what creates it. But we
Right.
know that even women in Africa, where all of those other conditions are different, there's a very small percentage of women who have this community state one, and those women can fight AIDS. those women don't get AIDS, right? So all that to say that when you have a robust, good bacteria, that is life-changing in so many ways for you. It's not just like it's better to have it. It's like if your microbiome is continuously able to come back to something healthy, that's basically our immune function. That's how our immune function works in every part of our body, right? And so that's why you have better birth outcomes when you have better bacteria. You have less infections, right? You have less recurrent infections. You have less chronic symptoms when you have a healthy microbiome. I just want to say that is, and how do I know that? I'm not a doctor, so I don't see patients coming in, but I do get a ton of letters and comments from places. And the things that I learn and hear over and over again is that when we biomimic women back to a healthy state, and that's all I'm doing, right? Like I'm not treating anybody and changing their biology, which is to say, if you stop doing it, you'll get sick again, right? It only works if you're doing it, right? And so Haley got better, but if Haley stops using the Good Clean Love products, she will get another infection at some point. And the rate of infection or reinfection, like you were talking about, that like basically when you kill everything with an antibiotic, you don't just kill the bad bacteria, you kill any good bacteria you have, including the iners, right? So
Right.
then you have to hope that they will come back. But because so many women, again, we know this is true, we don't know how this came to be true, don't have the wherewithal to create the food for good bacteria to live there, right? To start that cycle. It's like we have to be proactive. And that's why a lot of studies, well, a lot of studies that are trying to understand what bacteria can thrive there, they don't actually set the stage. And this is, if I could teach anything, and they only remember one thing I say in this whole time that we're talking. This is the thing to remember. When you have a low pH vaginally, then good bacteria can hang out. But if you have a high pH, that is where unhealthy bacteria have a party. And so how you maintain a low pH is by having these healthy bacteria that are producing glycogen, that are producing lactic acid, and that are eating the lactic acid, that are producing more lactobacilli, right? So in order for good lactobacilli to live there, you want to get the environment ready for them. And that's really the magic of what our Good Clean Love products do, and the same thing on our new Good Clean Clinical Care. So instead of actually destroying the microbiome and completely shedding the top layer of epithelium when you use a hyperosmolar product, that's what happens, right? When anything that's really high pH and heavier, way heavier than your own tissue, is going to pull the moisture out of that tissue and it's going to make it all slough off. So then you're way more susceptible to those infections. Now, this we do have a study on, like sometimes only within 4 hours. There's even a study after pap smears that women will have a case of BV after 4 hours of using like the terrible gels that they use for pap smears, which are also, dysbiotic and hyperosmolar.
Yeah.
So it really, this is
Is
something.
there a way to like test your pH
Yeah, there
regularly?
is
You know what I
totally,
mean?
right? Like there's pH strips, and we're going to start to sell them or give them away on Good Clean Love at some point. But you can, and you know who does it is Monistat, because there's the FDA is kind of frustrated that the only medicine that you can get over the counter is their yeast formula, their miconazole, right? And so when women have a vaginal thing, they're like, oh, I'm just going to go get some Monistat, right? But a lot of times they don't have yeast, they have BV. And in fact, it's, because the bacteria tends to be the first player. The
Right.
yeast actually comes up and rises when you've killed all the bacteria, right? Like weirdly, you can have enough yeast to make a yeast infection, but if you have bad bacteria, the yeast doesn't have the environment to like thrive, right? So it's sort of like opposite, and that's why after you kill all the bacteria, the yeast has a party, you know.
Right.
Um, so that all that to say
It's so interesting.
that
It's so
you
interesting
can
because
test your pH, but what's even more
uh-huh.
important, doing things every day to reduce your pH. And
Yeah.
that's where we call what we call biomatch, right? So either with a vaginal wash, it's really more like a vaginal rinse, our balance wash, and that's going to bring your pH to 4. And because of the way it's designed. And the same thing with our vaginal gels. That's going to bring your pH down. Inside, it's supposed to be 3.7 to 4.1. And so the cool thing is that now, if you get a medicine on Good Clean Clinical Care, the base of the medicines will do that for you also, right? It's not just like over the counter medicines, but now the actual compounded medicines, even metronidazole cream, right? Instead of doing something that's going to completely wreck your microbiome, our metronidazole cream or suppositories are actually supporting a healthy microbiome. So you can treat your symptoms, but also maintain your microbiome. That's the revolution. And I think, my prayer, sometimes it's hard to sort of be out in front and pray that you can actually get your message across. But here's the thing, more and more women who do this and they get well, then medicine's going to pay attention. That's how it goes, right? They'll pay attention because they'll be like, wow, what's happening? Or women will go to their doctor for their routine exam and be like, well, yeah, I started doing this and now look, I don't have any more of this.
True.
Yeah. So
That's really great and
yeah.
amazing what you're doing. And it's especially important, sorry to bring it back to those being treated with cancer, because we know just to run the numbers for women who are getting tamoxifen, there's up to like a 47% chance of vaginal dryness whenever they're taking that medication. And for anastrozole, it's even higher. It's like up to 62%. And
Yeah.
they're always wondering what we can do about this.
And
So if
vaginal dryness is just one step. That's the first step that
right.
they have words for. But acute vaginal dryness, which is really what you're talking about,
Mhm.
and in reproductive cancers, that can even turn into obliterated vaginas, right? Like
Mhm.
where the tissue is so dry that it sticks
Stick
together.
together, yeah.
And like where doctors aren't even talking to women about this, right? And so like using something like having a protocol,
Mhm.
which is dealing with more than just like, it's not just vulvar dryness, right? That's what's like when you think of vaginal dryness, people are thinking, oh, the outside of your vagina is dry, so too bad. No, it's not the outside, it's the inside, right? And that canal, depending on who you are and how much sex you've had in your life and so many things, it's like close together,
Yeah.
right? So if you get this experience where those two sides stick, you know, that's a serious symptom. That's
Mhm.
not vaginal dryness, right? That's like that's kind of like when you burn the roof of your mouth, or I sometimes have these symptoms where my mouth gets so dry, this is because I'm so old now, that my tongue will stick to the roof of my mouth. So I do all kinds of Chinese herbs for that. But it's the same thing, right?
Right.
Like you can actually tear the tissue because it's like the mucous membrane in the vaginal canal is literally the most sensitive tissue in the body. There's more nerve endings, not just clitoral nerve endings, but we could talk about that if you want, Haley, for all these young women who are trying to figure out do do they still maybe ever want to have sex? Yes, they do, but of course, if they've got such high sensitivity because there's so many nerve endings and that dryness, which is actually creating other consequences, right? Like you can just call it vaginal dryness and then you can write it off. But
Right.
vaginal dryness that's as severe and acute as the kind that women who are on these medications every day for years, that is something else. That's not just a little vaginal dryness, and frequently those women can then start to get like lesions or different kinds of lichens vaginally, or they
Yeah.
can get vaginal warts, or, like the longer that something isn't right, like it just kind of feeds itself, right?
Right.
So these symptoms are much more interrelated than we want to like pull one out and call it this and say use that. But honestly, I've talked to hundreds, if not 1,000 or more gynecologists over the course of doing this for 20 years. And you know how many of them tell me, you know why I only see people a few days a week? Especially like even this famous doctor at Harvard. It's because I have nothing I can give them. They come to me, they want me to do something for them, and we have no tools. Honestly, that's the thing I feel most proud of about this good, clean clinical care, is because we have so many combination treatments, right, that treat you in multiple ways, all in these really healthy bases. Like, it's a revolution of new tools and there's also a prescribing platform for people like you, Dr. Candace, that, maybe want to prescribe this to some of your own patients or your sister, that you can get on and you can prescribe directly. Because I mean, I tried a million ways to get this into medicine. And of course, who would believe me? I'm just kind of this crazy woman who'll talk about vaginal microbiomes and sex in the same sentence. Really not trustworthy. But I do want to say that like what we call something is important,
Right.
and to just call it vaginal dryness is a
Disservice.
misrepresentation
Yeah.
of what these women are living with, and it's why they quit doing the drugs, because
True.
no one's
Yes.
taking them seriously. It's the number one reason. I mean, and I know this because literally the VP of she's at AstraZeneca now, but before she was at the other one, I can't remember. And that when we had our first call, she told me, Wendy, when I got your stuff, when I went to the gynecologist, and I thought, why are we not giving these to these women in my trial? Right? Like that would maybe make them stay,
Right.
so she can't even get the research done well because women are just like, I can't take it anymore.
Well, it's just so interesting to me because obviously I have had a baby in the last year. And so, I'm going to all these visits. And it wasn't until I was pregnant that I really started to think about just like my gut microbiome and just like what that means to take vitamins and various things to keep that in a good place. Because I, had read that like keeping that will make childbirth, all the things easier. But like we never talk about my vaginal microbiome. I've had many pap smears. We've never talked about my vaginal microbiome. And it just makes me think too, it's so important for young women because, or even at any age, right? Because you
Yeah.
might have multiple partners, or you might have your marriage might allow multiple partner, whatever. You know what I mean? There are just so many
I mean,
where
also
you're
like
like
when you're
engaging with this organ all the time, but not learning about how to take care of it.
But also, when you're postpartum, Haley, like you are, right? Like, how old is she? 4 months, 5 months, 6 months?
She's 10, and she probably looks like she's 1, but and now
But my
getting really
point is that,
busy.
like, they
Yeah.
come with the fourth trimester, which is the first 3 months after. But if you never really get it right and you never get back to a healthy microbiome in that first 3 months, that's going on the whole first year, right? Like, there's so many times in life, not just when you have cancer, but I think when you have cancer and you get induced into a chemical menopause, when you're 30 years old or 35, that's like maybe the worst. But postpartum is really also really hard, right? Like you just delivered a life and you barely look like yourself, right? Like you can't really remember who you were before. And
Well, also, you don't know what's what, right? And this goes for cancer too.
yeah,
You don't know if this is a product of treatment, or this is
yeah,
menopause, or if this is
exactly.
any hormone doing a hormonal thing, right? And so it's really
Totally.
hard to, as a woman in general, it's so hard to
Yeah.
identify what's going on. Is this a problem, or is this a symptom of the thing that I'm going through in life, this moment?
I
right?
mean, I think that captures something really huge, Haley, which is the way in which we do disservice to women about educating them. I mean, do you know that 40% of women can't even name their body parts of their vagina?
Right.
You
Like when you mentioned vulva, I was like, maybe I should explain what a vulva is to our audience as well. Like the vulva is actually the outside part of the
right,
vagina.
exactly.
There's the mons pubis. There's a whole bunch of other things, but everyone just says vagina to encapsulate everything.
And
So,
a lot of women won't even say vagina. They say vajayjay, or they say
yeah.
honey pot, or they say whatever they say, right? So there's this mystery that we have around that part of our body. I mean, like I was 39 and I'm pretty educated. I read a lot of books, right? And and can you believe I was 39 before I learned that the clitoris is not just this glands on the top of my vagina, but actually is an organ system more
Yeah.
complicated than anything a man has, that actually with arms, legs that go deep into the back of the vagina where the actual G spot exists.
Right.
And all this time, is there a G spot? Like most of my youth was like, oh no, it's not even a real thing. Yeah, it's a real thing. And that's why, like, when people are learning to have sex and trying to understand what makes it work, you know how sometimes, Haley, when you're young, it's like it works and it's like, oh my God, that was amazing. Then you try to do it again and it's like, that was not amazing now, and it's like, what did we do? And then you try to repeat exactly what you did and it doesn't work. But all of that, again, speaking to anatomy, right? Like, and I'm telling you, I was 39. I'd had 4 children by this time, and I had no idea how my sexual response, I couldn't explain it. I thought, what is wrong with me? And so, like, still, I think there's a lot of women who don't know how their sexual response works because they don't understand their own anatomy, and when they have cancer or they're postpartum, right? Like you said, everything's different, like, is this creating this, or am I crazy, or what's doing that? And so we really owe it to ourselves and to our sisters and to our mothers to, like, just try to destigmatize and demystify this part of the body, which literally delivers life, right? Like it
So yeah, we were at a Jack and Jill event yesterday, my mom and I, and this woman, came by our table and we were talking about black breast cancer and all the things. And then she was like, wait, let me go get my daughter, like how young is too young to start doing breast exams and have these conversations. And this little girl was probably 11, had already started her period though. And so it's like, why not
is
dive
not
into
too
doing self
young.
exams? Right? It's not too young. And so it just makes me think, again, the same reason why we have Pink Table Talk and Love of My Girls is because we want young people to start doing breast exams earlier, right? Start to understand these things as normal. Let's demystify the breast. Like it's not just a sexual organ, like just all of the things that I think that you are to unteach ourselves a lot of things, right? And so
Yeah.
I think, the work that we do teaching young people about their breasts should also be done in the vaginal space. Like, why is it that there's, not enough conversation, or you just don't know, or you understand monostat being the one thing you do, right? And like, how do we
I mean,
change that narrative?
so this is an astonishing statistic that women will go 5 years with vaginal pain of one kind or another before they will talk to their doctor. 5 years.
That's a long time.
So it's like, yeah, and I mean, still, I mean, it's illegal to say the word vagina on the Congress floor, right? Like you know, I mean, it's just like this is such a misogynistic society. Um, even most health, like any health that's researched and paid for, it's always maternal health because we say we care about children, but we don't even really care about them, you know? But like women's health, just women living in their bodies with, the constant
And
refrain,
there's
just get
and
used to it.
there's such a
Like you
big
have
drop
like
off.
bleeding. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
there's such a big drop off after having a kid if you go for that 6-week appointment afterwards, and then you're kind of just done. right? And the same thing happens with so many cancer patients. It's like treatment ends, and then it kind of just
They're not even
drop
sent
off of
back to
like,
their
yeah,
gynecologist.
like they're, it just how do you
Yeah.
then where is the space, and how do we make space for these long going ongoing conversations about these how these health things affect us over time?
Totally. Well, I hope people will feel like they can come to good, clean clinical care because we have so much education there. I mean, that's another reason that I was so driven to try to make this happen over the last several years, because there is no place where you really can get educated about your vaginal health terribly, you know?
I was gonna ask you, like, how did you get started in this work? Why
Yeah.
was this your lane? You
Um,
know?
So, I started after I had my fourth kid, and she was 3 years old at the time. And I had to have a prolapse surgery because after four babies, I mean, this just happens to so many women, and nobody
Mhm.
talks about this either, right?
Right.
There's only so much you can stretch the vaginal tissue, and then you've got to like cut it and put it back together. And it was literally the most painful thing that ever happened to me. Honestly, I've had many surgeries, but nothing compares to cutting your vagina and sewing it back together. And so you get a lot of scar tissue. And, I have been married for like 44 years this year. And the one thing that made my marriage work was that we could always have sex, except like I said at the beginning, it'd be really great. And then the next time it wouldn't be great. And we'd fight about why it wasn't great, whose fault it was. So it's not like I just had great sex from the beginning. I just always wanted to have great sex. So I was highly motivated after this surgery to like come up with a solution. And the doctors would give me samples, Astroglide, KY, all the shit. And I'd go back and then I'd have to soak myself in the tub for 3 hours. And I would just be like, what is wrong with me? Right. And then I started studying it and come to realize that those products are made largely out of propylene glycol or polyethylene glycol. Okay, that is a word that is also antifreeze and brake fluid. It's the same chemical. And many lubricants on the market have a higher percentage than pet safe brake fluid. That's what they're putting in you. So, when you think about brake fluid or antifreeze, those products are designed, propylene glycol essentially, to actually have a really high freezing point, right? Antifreeze. So, so like think of what that's doing to the most sensitive tissue in your body. You know, it's not good. So anyway,
This just
that's
goes
what,
to think like this just goes to remind the audience as well, like, and sorry, I think I have a little bit of a lag. But I think it's so important to remind the audience to think about all of the products you're using, right? Like Good
totally.
Clean Love is great for the vagina, but like think about what you're putting on your face and you're putting on your body. Cause I mean, I
Yeah,
remember, I think in like middle school, my sister, she was at a friend's house and her friend used, what did people put up for acne back in the day? Or like,
like Clearasil.
Proactive.
proactive.
Yeah.
So a friend was using proactive, and it like spilled on her shirt, and it bleached her shirt. And it was like, you're putting that on your face.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Again, it's just a moment of like, we really have to pay
Totally.
attention to our product.
And there's so much like fake shit right now, right? Like all that TikTok shops and
Yeah.
Instagram,
Yeah.
like these fake influencers that are saying, "Oh, look, I lost 20 pounds in one day because I use this weird water," or I don't know what the hell. But like people believe it, right? They want that outcome, they believe it. And so, and the more we don't read and the more we don't have context for what we do and know, it's really hard. But yeah, if a product, even a facial product, is made with a glycol, propylene glycol, polyethylene glycol, that is designed for cars. That's what it's used for first. So what it's doing in like personal care products, I'm not sure. But so we have this biomatch system that is a patented system where we, like I said, first we do no harm. So all our products are isoosmotic. That means it matches your body. So it's not going to make you shed your epithelium. It won't affect your skin, right? Like it leaves things intact. The second is that we add this lactic acid that reduces pH, because we want the body to be at the pH that it needs to be for good bacteria to live there. And then the third is that we provide this form of lactic acid that feeds like all kinds of bacteria that need to live there, right? Like whether you have inners or you have really good bacteria. So we're killing the bad bacteria, and that alone is going to make you feel better, right? Just doing that is going to make you feel better, reducing the pH. But feeding the good bacteria actually is really the thing that's going to like, oh my God, I smell so good, right? You'll smell your vagina, you'll be like, whoa. And that's like vaginas smell sweet when they're balanced. You know, they don't have, they have a smell, but they smell like you, and it's sexy, right? And you'll just stop getting these recurrent infections and all that. And so, but I'm not going to fix you for life. Let me just say that. It's not like you're going to do it and you'll feel better and then you stop doing it and then you're going to be better forever. It's not like that. Because nobody knows how to do that for any microbiome, not for the gut, not for the mouth, not for anything. But working to maintain a low pH and having good bacteria inside of you, in your gut, in your vagina, like it will really help with so much symptomology and infections. You'll be
So
shocked.
tell us about like all the different various products. Oh wait, actually, Dr.
Yeah.
Candace, you had a question first.
That was my question. I was going to
Oh,
say, like,
awesome.
a
Yeah, I'd
lot
love
of
to hear about.
patients, because there's like
Yeah.
restore, there's rehydrate, and it's like some
So
people.
yeah, the difference of those two, actually, you know, and you see this with our lubricant line too, right? So I started Good Clean Love because I was trying to save my own marriage, honestly. Like you know, I couldn't stay up till 2 in the morning and soak myself to have sex with my husband. I was like, and if I stopped having sex, it was like game over, right? And I grew up in a divorce, so I was really, really devoted to a solution. So all of our products started with the most simple things, right? Aloe. Aloe is really great at building lactobacilli. You know, we know that it's very pro healthy lactobacilli, and it's totally natural, right? So our first products, Restore and Almost Naked, are made with 95% organic aloe, right? And so really simple products, but we wanted the products to be at a low pH, like I just told you, right? And for reasons like some women, about 5% of people have an allergy to not just aloe, but allium. So onions are in that group, right? There's a lot of products that grow like aloe that are in that group. You wouldn't know that you're allergic to aloe on your skin out here usually. If you're severely allergic, you might. But like again, you know it in your mouth, right? Like where you have mucous membrane, that's your microbiome, and that's where you're most sensitive. So some women are sensitive and react to our aloe-based products. That's why when women are really having dryness issues, that's why we developed the Rehydrate. And that was our first biomatch product. So it was BioNude. It used to be called BioNourish, but now we call it Rehydrate. And that's made with an HEC base and a xanthan base. So it's not reactive the way that aloe is. So women with cancer have great success with the Rehydrate and the BioNude. That's how we developed it. And then from there, we just kept going down this path of using less reactive bases. So that's the difference. We have a lot of people who love and are devoted to our sort of signature early products. Almost Naked is like one of the best selling, maybe the best selling organic aloe lube in the market. You know, we're on shelves across the nation, and in, you know, it's our number one product, just mostly because it's been on the market since like 2008, right? But then the Rehydrate and the BioNude is growing in leaps and bounds. It's literally the most biomatched, it's the first really truly biomatched product we made. And it's the one I use all the time. Although we just launched one called Naked Coconut, which is kind of a combination of our original Naked, but a lot of people are like all about coconut oil. And what I would say about oil and dimethicone, which is another really popular lubricant use, like there's a lot of dimethicone lubricants, is that we just don't really understand how dimethicone works in the body. We know that there was a lot of issues when we put dimethicone in women's breasts, right, that we didn't understand initially. And we do know that dimethicone doesn't actually wash off because, silicone is also a product that's used in engines. And they want to use that because it keeps going and going and going. So I understand. So we have this hybrid product where we use very small amount of dimethicone, but it's still isoosmotic. And the coconut, the almost coconut, or the naked coconut, sorry, is the same way, right? Where it's kind of a hybrid, where it has like an oil and also water base that's like emulsified. So it has more slip. So for some people who want to do anal, or they really want to have more long lasting, that's what I would recommend. We also have a really amazing fertility lubricant for women who might be wanting to get pregnant now, even after their cancer diagnosis. And what's special about it is that it keeps your pH low until sperm shows up, or until you have cervical mucus, which is the one day of the month that you can get pregnant. So for one day of the month, your body will raise the pH to 7 to meet the sperm, and your cervical mucus is also at 7. So that's the day you want a product that brings you to 7. Every other day of the month, you want a product that keeps your pH low. And that's why I kind of feel like our Regenus is a little magical that way, because it'll keep your pH low until the job is to raise it. And it knows that because, there's cervical mucus or sperm present. But otherwise, you're basically trying to get pregnant with a high pH and bad bacteria around, which is going to make it really hard to get pregnant.
And then tell us about, so if someone wanted to purchase something from the Good Clean Clinical Care, do they need a doctor's prescription, or do you all?
No, so the beauty of that site is that many, many women, like we were just talking about, don't have a primary gynecologist. They're not even referred back. And in many states in the country, you can't even get onto a list. It takes 3 months or 4 months to get in. 2 or 3 visits that a woman will go see her doctor for are vaginal related, right? Like some problem with their vagina. So we're really hoping that we can fill that gap. So no, we have a really probably the best medical network where we have OBGYNs in every state. So they choose a medicine, and like basically we have a category cancer survivor, and they can go there and they can look for a product that's like a pain reliever, or and we have all grades of pain relievers, or dealing with vaginal dryness, right? We have like a clinical grade restore your vaginal microbiome kit, right? That you can get with anything, or you can just buy that by itself. But basically, a doctor reviews your case. You have to do an intake form, and then either prescribes you that medicine or talks to you to give you a different medicine. So if you go on there because you need an antibiotic and you think, oh, I want metronidazole, but metronidazole hasn't worked for 3 times, then they'll probably prescribe you a different antibiotic.
And we will thank you
You can get the medical help on the site.
Okay.
and we will share the affiliate code in on the YouTube, so you can share. Thank you to your partnership with us. I think this is really, really great. I'm really excited to share this when I go to Martha's Vineyard in a couple of weeks. Because I think this again is so important. We're doing like a whole Women's Day moment. Because I just think that there is a gap here. Same way there's a gap again in breast health, the work that we do every day, and we're trying to fill it. So there's a similar gap for young women knowing their vagina and not thinking of it. It's like this thing that shouldn't be talked about. Or I mean, I even feel like it's funny because my husband and I, like, he doesn't understand most of this as well. But I do say like, oh, my pH is off, and somehow that rings a bell to him. And so um,
Yeah.
but it's because he just like understands what a pH is, you know what I mean? And
Uh,
so, but it's just funny because we all have our own different language of talking about this as well. And
uh-huh.
so the more that we can understand and not be afraid of it, is the
Yeah.
better, right? And
Well, you
so
know, those
thank you
sheets,
for bringing all of this.
you know, we made those sheets for you that you like hand out
Yeah,
at some of your
we're
events.
gonna be handing them out. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just like normalize, right? Like give people language for what they're experiencing so they don't have to feel bad about it, right? They don't have to feel ashamed, 100%. Yeah,
No, because it is there is an embarrassment when it comes to a lot of these things, and there shouldn't be, because it's just
it's
what
your
your
body.
body's doing, and as your body
Yeah,
ages, the different things happen, like the prolapse and things like that. Like, and so it's
totally.
just so normal.
Yeah, she is so cute. It's very
Thank you, thank you. Sorry
distracting
that
to
she's been kind
try
of,
to
yeah, no,
talk to
she's
you
been
and be
kind of all over
looking
the
at her
place
because I
today.
wish I could just pick her up. Um,
I know.
anyway, listen, I really appreciate you taking the time, and yeah, and you know, we'll also get you a code for Good Clean Love. So if people want to go on and buy stuff, you can put that also in the link. I'll make sure somebody follows up with you
Mhm.
tomorrow on that. Um, and yeah, we really just want to be accessible, right? We really want people to have a choice and to have like I said, like feel like their experience is normal. There's nothing wrong with them that they're having that experience, you know,
Right.
that's just part of having a vagina and being a woman, and that there's help. You're not stuck. Like this is not a life sentence, you know, it can change. So I think
Great.
that's
Thank you
Yeah.
important.
for all of the work that you've done. This is amazing. I'm going to definitely share it with all of my patients. So thank you.
Well, I really appreciate it and would love for you to share it with your sister too,
Oh,
because
yes.
we'd
Yes, her
love to
too.
get some feedback from her. Honestly, you know, when you're just starting something, you kind of do the very best you can, and then you don't even see all the things you miss. So if there's things you see, don't hesitate to tell us too.
We will.
But anyway, Haley, thank you so much. And I was
Thank you
just
guys both.
talking to your mom about like trying to get some kind of study going. So we should keep looking at that.
No, let's keep the work going. Obviously, there's a clear connection between the work that we do and the work that you do. So let's continue to build. Obviously, thank you to all of our sponsors that allow us to be table talk and bring these conversations to the masses. Because I think again, normalizing it starts right here. We're doing it right now. And yeah, I mean, I love talking to my girlfriends about what's going on there, what all the things, because I think
And
it's
like
so
once
important.
you know, like everybody calls you and asks you, right?
Totally.
Yeah,
No,
like
it's great. It's great. I feel like and I just feel like there's so much room for Black women to continue to really think about their products they're using, right? And you said TikTok shop, like a lot of things that are being marketed to us in a certain way, and you know what I mean? Like, and so just really
yeah,
sift through and do the research, go find the Wendy's and like read their background and how they created the stuff to like make sure that you understand what we're using. So
people really
thank
do
you
feel
guys.
better when they find us. And that's like that's why I can't quite retire, right? Even though you could argue I should. Because I like it's the most gratifying thing, right? Like when you get these notes and people are like, "Oh my God, I finally feel like myself," you know, and it's like, hallelujah.
You got your
Right. No,
hand
yeah.
full
Now
there,
we're
Haley.
now we're doing some hair pulling here. She's just so tired. But anyways, thank you guys for an
Yeah,
amazing
thank you.
table talk.
Really nice to meet you both.
Definitely check out more, watch more of these YouTube videos because we're bringing information like this. And we will see you guys next month.
Thanks.
Thank
There.
you.
Bye.
Bye.